Well, good morning, everyone. I'm filling in. This is Cindy Gustafson filling in this morning with our chairperson for our operations and governance meeting, Brooke Lane, and Wes just arrived. We are calling this meeting to order. It is now Wednesday, October 23rd, and it is 8:37 a.m. The first item on the agenda is the roll call to determine quorum. Maria?
Ms. Bowman,
Here.
Mr. Bass,
Here.
Ms. Gustafson,
Here.
Ms. Hill,
Here.
Ms. Lane,
Here.
Mr. Rice,
Here.
Madam Vice Chair,
Or whatever I am.
we have a quorum.
Thank you. And Brooke, we hope you feel better soon. Happy to do this. It's easier in person, I think, sometimes. So for the members of
Thank you.
For the members of the public who are joining us remotely to observe the meeting, go to trpa.gov. Under the calendar header, click on Governing Board Hybrid Meeting for October 23rd, 2024. There you'll find a link to our public webinar hosted on Zoom. To address committee members directly with your comments this morning, please raise your hand in Zoom by clicking Raise Hand at the bottom of your screen at the appropriate agenda item. With your hand raised, you will be unmuted by TRPA staff and have 3 minutes to address the committee. If you have used the dial-in numbers to join us by telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand and be unmuted. For items that are agendized as information only, we will hear public comment during the general public comment period at the end of the committee meeting. Comments on items agendized for action or possible action, we will hear public comment before the committee takes any action. To remote committee members, if you wish to speak, you can also raise your hand in Zoom. You will find the hand icon on the bottom of your screen. And just to remember not to have any sidebar conversations in the chat box, and please mute your mics unless speaking to cut down on background noise. Finally, I would also like to ask that all remote members turn on the cameras if they are able. Members of the public who have joined us in person, please raise your hand and you will be called on up to the front to speak. And committee members who are in person, please raise your hand if you wish to comment and speak clearly into the microphone. The next item on the agenda is approval of our Operations and Governance Committee agenda. Are there any staff changes, Chad?
No changes.
Okay, then we'll deem the agenda approved as posted for the record. And now we'll move on to agenda item 2, approval of the minutes. We have a draft set of minutes from September 25th, 2024 on page 21 of our packets. Does any member of the committee wish to make a change? No one here in the room. Anybody online wish to make a change to the minutes? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Thank you. So moved.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Discussion on recommendation for approval of our September financials is item 3 on our agenda. It's found on page 75 of our packets. And I'm going to pass this over to Mr. Cox to present the item.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. So this morning we're going to be going through the first quarter of the fiscal year, which is July through September. We've continued to have dialogue with both states on budgets for the coming fiscal year 26 for the state of California, and then the biennium 26-27 for Nevada. In California, we've been working on a BCP for salary increases. This had an initial denial 2 weeks ago. However, we've been working with the California Natural Resource Department there, and they've agreed to appeal that denial and continue to take that forward. So the good news is that is still in process for state of California. On the Nevada side, we've had some ongoing conversations with our governor's office of finance. They've asked us some questions. We've had to update some metrics, so we've continued to kind of move along with our state friends over there in Nevada. So continued progress. We'll let you know if we see any concerns or need any help. For September, some of the highlights, revenues so far through the quarter at 33%. Our planning fees are actually ahead of last year at this point. And, talking to Wendy and our permitting and compliance team, they've continued to see permitting volume even through October here, which is maybe a little bit higher than compared to last year. Couple other things on the expenditure side. We're at 13% of budget, which isn't quite at the quarter mark, and that's really because contracts move with our grants. So contracts are only at 8%. What we spend in contracts, and I'll get to that in a minute, has been more focused on general fund type activity. So if you want to jump to the next slide, I'll walk you through a little more detail on the revenue, and then we'll jump into expenses. We covered this in the past, and state revenues are at 97%, so pretty much there. What's left to come is the appropriation from the Board of Examiners for the Nevada salary increases. We'll go to those guides at some point this fiscal year to receive those appropriations. Here you can see the grants are small. Grants are only at 1%. Typically, we invoice those on a quarterly basis. So our finance team right now is busy getting our first quarter invoices out. So we should see that number bump up in October when I review these with you. Fees for service include the permitting, like I talked about. We're at on budget there. AIS fees, which tend to be cyclical with summer, as well as our shoreline fees. Those are at 3% and 15% of the budget respectively. We'll see those ramp up as we get into the spring. And then local revenues, the 150, we have worked through the invoicing here in October. So depending on the timing of when those invoices actually roll, we should see that come through here in the next month or so. And then finally, on other revenue, we're in good shape. That's the interest and investment income associated with our investments. So we're on track there. So overall revenues looking good at this point in the year. And any questions? Okay.
Anybody online have a question? Committee members?
No question.
Okay. We'll
Keep-
jump over to expenses and then we could finish with cash flow. On the expense front, salaries are at 22%, slightly behind budget. And this is mainly because our salary actions occurred August 23rd. And so there was effectively 4 payrolls that weren't at the higher salary. We had planned the full year to be at, the increased salary amount. And then secondly, we had 1 full-time equivalent that was just backfilled October 7th. One of our finance grant analysts left before the fiscal year. So we went a quarter without that FTE. So we are slightly behind on the comp front. Contracts, like I said, will increase as grants ramp up. And then, all the others are well in alignment. So no concerns on the expense front. Jump into the next slide. In terms of cash flow, we have $7.7 million of cumulative cash flow to date. Our total receipts for the quarter are $13.5 million, which is mainly driven by those states appropriations coming in July. We had a couple million of grant receipts from stuff that was invoiced from the prior fiscal, $700K of planning fees. And then we've also had mitigation fees come in throughout the first 3 months of about $1 million too. Disbursements for the quarter, 5.8 so far, which is driven by typical accounts payable and salaries. So bottom line is there hasn't been a bunch of mitigations dispersed yet. We've approved about $1.1 million in August and September. So we'll see those as those projects take form and they come to us to disperse those funds. We'll see that ramp up as well. So that concludes my report. I don't know if there's any other questions.
I don't have any. Do any of the committee members in the room have a question?
No.
Deborah? Okay, and we'll go to those online.
No
Members? Thank you. I'm not hearing any others, Chad.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
So then we'll go to public comment on this item. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the Operations and Governance Committee on this item? Please raise your hand now, either in person or by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen on Zoom. Do we have anyone online?
No public comment online.
Okay, so we'll close the public comment on this item. And if there's no further comments from the board, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor, or do we have to call? I'm sorry, call the roll, please.
Ms. Bowman,
Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Ms. Lane.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you very much. So that brings us to agenda item number 4, discussion and possible recommendation for approval of release of El Dorado County Water Quality Mitigation Funds for $20,000 toward the Pioneer Trail US Highway 50 Intersection Safety Improvement Project. Information on this item can be found on page 95 of our packets. So Tracy, I'm going to turn it over to you for this item.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Tracy Campbell with the EIP department here at TRPA with this request, as you mentioned already, from El Dorado County for $20,000 in water quality mitigation funds for the Pioneer Trail US Highway 50 Intersection Safety Improvement Project. Located in Myers, the project will improve the intersection at US Highway 50 and Pioneer Trail by replacing the existing signalized intersection with a modern roundabout. The project aims to improve traffic flow, mobility, walkability, and sustainability at the intersection and will close a major gap in the area's active transportation system. The multimodal transportation improvements include visible crosswalks, a shared use path, improved lighting and signage, and they'll also implement a new stormwater drainage system to improve water quality. The requested funds on this will be used for the final design phase and will help meet those really critical local match requirements for some previously awarded federal funds. And we are joined online by Senior Engineer from El Dorado County, Dan Kickett, who can answer any specific questions you might have about that project. And I will pass it back to you, Ms. Gustafson. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kickett, did you want to address the committee?
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to for this request for the mitigation funds for this critical El Dorado County project.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Are there any questions from committee members? I'm not seeing any in the room. Does anybody online wish to make a comment or have a question? I'm not hearing any, so we'll go to public comment on this item. If any member of the public wishes to address the Operations and Governance Committee on this agenda item, please raise your hand now, either in person or by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by dialing *9 on your phone. We don't have anyone in the room, so I'll go right to online.
And we have no public comment online.
Okay, so we'll close the public comment. Are there any further comments from the committee, or would someone like to make a motion?
So
Madam
moved.
Acting Chair. Okay, never mind.
Okay, we have a motion and then we'll call the roll. Thank you, Maria.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Bowman,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Ms. Lane,
Yes.
and that motion passes.
Thank you very much. Motion passes. We'll move now then to agenda item 5, which is discussion and possible recommendation for approval of release of El Dorado County Water Quality Mitigation Funds for $35,000 toward the Apache Avenue Pedestrian Safety and Connectivity Project. Information on this item can be found on page 101 of our packets. So Tracy, you're up again.
Thank you. Once again, Tracy Campbell with the EIP department here at TRPA with this request for $35,000, once again in water quality mitigation funds, and this time for the Apache Avenue Pedestrian Safety and Connectivity Project. The project site is along Apache Avenue from the US Highway 50 and State Route 89 intersection to the Lake Tahoe Environmental Science Magnet School. And it proposes to implement sustainable mobility improvements to provide a safe, walkable and bikeable roadway. The project will reconstruct approximately 0.39 miles
Did this freeze?
Yeah, I've lost audio completely.
Yeah, okay. Looks like we lost the Tracy as well. The meeting appears to be muted.
Yeah, it's muted. I'll go tell them.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Can the Zoom participants hear us online?
I can hear you, Tracy.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, our apologies. We lost connection there. I'm assuming that we have our committee members back. Ms. Hill, Ms. Lane, Mr. Bass, are you back with us?
I'm back.
Good. So we have a quorum. Okay.
Yep.
Are there any questions on this item from the committee members?
I assume that are we on the 35,000 for Apache?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't done anything because we lost connection. I apologize. We
Yeah.
are back with you now.
Okay.
Yes, any questions on item 5 on our agenda? If not, we'll go to public comment on this item. Any members of the public, please raise your hand at the bottom of the Zoom screen or by dialing *9 on your phone. Do we have any members of the public interested in commenting on this item?
We have no hands raised to make public comment on this item.
Then we'll close our public comment and I'll pass it back to the committee to entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I would like to recommend approval of item number 5.
Thank you very
As
much.
presented. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other discussion, I'll ask Maria to call the roll.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Bowman,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Ms. Lane,
Yes,
that motion passes.
Thank you very much. So the next 3 items are items 6, 7, and 8, discussion and possible recommendation for approval of inflation adjustment to TRPA filing fee schedule, discussion and recommendation for these inflation adjustments to our rental car mitigation fee and our mobility mitigation fee. And these can be found on page 107 of your packet. So I'm going to turn it over now to Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Chad Cox, TRP Finance Lead for the record. So this is my first time going through this process and obviously had the team support. It's 3 items because it's 3 separate items that we're looking to change fees on. It's actually 2 resolutions that you guys are going to look to approve. And the reason there's 2 resolutions is the timing of when those resolutions will become effective. For the one, it needs to be January 1st in order to have a full quarter. And that's for the rental car mitigation fee. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. And the other is we need to make sure we get 60 days a notice, and also want to line it up at a time in which filing fees as well as the mobility mitigation fee don't just in terms of timing of year end versus when we can start it. So that one we start later in January. So anyway, 3 items, 1 report, 2 resolutions. Got it?
That's complicated math for us
It
early
is.
this
It is.
morning, but
We thought it'd be easier than trying to run through 3 staff reports. The TRPA Compact in Article 8B allows us to fix and collect reasonable fees for the services we render as an agency. Also, our rules of procedure allow us to collect fees associated with permitting. Our code of ordinances also allow us to do this. So, we're basically following our processes here. What those rules of procedure say is that we tie our fee increases to the Western States Consumer Price Index. CPI is basically a measure of inflation. That current inflation index for Western states as of September is 2.1%. So our recommendation and our proposed increase for our application fees and our mobility mitigation fees is that 2.1%. The rental car as well has been increased by 2.1% from $6 to $6.13. So as you can see there, you can see the application fee increase history. Sorry, next slide. Over time, we've been following that CPI index since 2018. Bottom line here, we still aren't quite covering our permitting and compliance department cost and their overhead. So that's something that I think we will come back to you at some point. The team is working through a process improvement plan that I think this committee reviewed last year. Those process improvements have been kicked off. We're beginning to measure, and I think the plan will be to come back to you at some point in the next 6 to 12 months with some more fine-tuned recommendations. But overall, this is just a blanket inflation increase for application fees, mobility mitigation, and rental car mitigation. So with that, that's kind of the summary of the increase that we'd like you to consider. Are there any questions?
I just had one. So
Please.
we track September to September as
Yes.
the indicator for that. That's interesting. There's so many different months you can choose.
Fair.
And it seems on the low side, but if that's the one we've been using, then
It has been, and this went through, it looked like between September, I kind of went back and looked historically at when it landed on the agenda. It's been somewhere between September and December. So you know, we did used to, before Article 16 was approved last year, we did have a floor, a
Mhm.
3% floor in there, meaning if we would take the CPI or 3%, whichever was higher. That floor didn't get incorporated into Article 16 of our rules of procedure. So that's something we may come back and tweak with some other adjustments in the future. But we didn't want to hold up these fee adjustments to have the rules of procedure adjusted.
Okay,
That difference between 2.1% and 3 is pretty nominal over a 6-month period in the big scheme. So we wanted to get the fee increases going. And we'll work on the rules of procedure in the future with other potential changes.
yeah, I think that would be wise to have a floor in there. if-
Definitely.
if
And it
possible,
was,
especially when we're not making up the
Correct.
costs of the services for these.
thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? I'm not seeing any here in the room. Anyone online? Okay, then we'll go to public comment on this item. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Lane.
Oh, I didn't know if that worked or not. Okay, it worked. Just my only question would just be, what is the gap? You mentioned, that we're not quite covering our costs. So what percentage are we kind of falling short?
Right. So the total gap is $1.2 million budgeted for this year, which is a pretty significant percentage. It's over 10. But what that is we are allowed to apply admin and overhead, and that's really about the admin and overhead factor as well. So I'd say that the gap is really, we're not covering the admin and overhead, simply put. Does that answer your question, Brooke?
It sure does. I mean, because an
Right.
inflation adjustment isn't going to help either. If
Nope.
if it's that sizable.
Correct.
And yeah, at some point, I just worry about what is the sweet spot, for our residents that have to pay these fees to get permits to be able to do their projects, and just making sure we're always in the affordable range. I don't know what that is. I don't know how you figure that out.
Yeah, well, I do know that the team is working through measuring where our cost and our time is spent kind of by fee. And we're going to be able to compare that measurement of our cost versus the amount of fee that we're charging. And we're going to, the plan is to come back in the next 6 to 12 months to show you a view of that. So we can see if there's areas where we do want to decrease because it's in the wrong direction, or areas where we're losing significantly. And then we can, come back with a holistic view, and then potentially make some more, like I said, more fine-tuned adjustments versus these blanket inflation adjustments in the future.
Great. Thank you.
I think that's our next step. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from committee members or comments? Then we'll go to public comment on this item. Are there any members of the public interested in speaking to us? You can raise your hand at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by dialing *9.
Ms. Gustafson, we may pause just a moment. Just got notice that the feed may be frozen, so I want to make sure that we are projecting out to the public
Okay.
and other members. So IT is on the way, so we'll just pause.
If you can hear me, we're again having some internet connection issues, so we're double checking our feed to make sure we're broadcasting.
Okay.
We're back up?
We're good with the feed. So I just wanna
Okay,
make
so
sure
are
that
there any
everyone-
members of the public that would like to comment on this item?
And Ms. Gustafson, we have no hands raised to make public comment on this item.
Okay, then I'll bring it back to the committee. We have 2 motions to make here. The first one is a motion to recommend approval of the attached resolution 2024 blank as shown in attachment A and its exhibit 1, amending the TRPA filing fee schedule and mobility mitigation fee. Would somebody care to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. If there's no discussion, I would ask Maria to call the roll for that motion.
Ms. Bowman,
Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
and Ms. Lane.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you, Maria. And then our second motion is to recommend approval, the attached resolution 2024 blank as shown in attachment B, amending the RCMF.
So moved.
Thank you. And Maria, will you call the roll?
Ms. Bowman,
Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Ms. Lane,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. So then we'll move over to our next item. Item 6 on our agenda. It's 9 on our agenda, right? Yes. Item 9 on our agenda, quarterly treasurer's report. It's found on page 143 of our packets. And Chad Cox is going to present.
Thank you again. So once a quarter, we look at our investments and want to share that with you. So a summary of the quarterly treasury report here will follow. Our investment balance as of 9/30 is $37.3 million. This is up $10.6 million from the beginning of the fiscal year. Similar to the cash flow story that I shared in the financials, that's because as the state appropriations come in, we get them effectively in the first month and spend them down throughout the fiscal year. And that's a main driver of the increase. The other item is at the end of June, or in June of last year, we had moved some money out of our investment account to our operating account to ensure that we could cover costs for the rest of the fiscal year. That ended up not being needed, so we moved that back from our operating account into our investment account, and that represents the majority of the $10 million increase. Overall, our investment pools are very conservatively managed. We've got 69% of those investments in the state's funds. That's LAIF and the LGIP funds. 24% is in treasuries and 9% are in corporate securities. We've talked as well, and I'll get to this in next steps as well. We will be doing an investment policy certification and update. That's due back any time. So hopefully we'll get that on the agenda for next month, provided we receive that back. Jump into the next slide. This is an investment landscape overview. Our maturities here, as you can see, are relatively short term. 81% of that $37 million has a less than a 1 year maturity. And all of our securities currently meet our rating and term requirements per our current policy. There have been no changes to ratings of our securities. They've maintained consistency over the last quarter. In the last quarter, we have had a few securities mature. We had 2 treasuries mature that were yielding 3.3% and a 4.3% respectively. We also had 2 corporate securities. A Coca-Cola security matured that was yielding 1.8%, and a Toronto Dominion security yielding 4.3%. So what's been interesting is as we've seen these securities mature, we've had the lower yielding ones mature, and then as we've been buying in, we've been able to buy in at higher rates, which should help us continue to maintain stronger interest rates over the coming year. Let's jump to the next slide and just I'll give you a little bit of background on what's going on in the current market, just so you have an understanding of how that might impact our investments. The federal funds interest rate was reduced by 50 basis points in September. It's the first time in a long time, right? Since we've seen the rate reduce. What that's caused is the short-term treasury yields have dropped between 50 and 90 basis points. So as you can see, the spot rates here, as you look on the left-hand side, as you go down the list, it goes from shorter term to longer term. Those rates have dropped between, like I said, 55 and almost 108 basis points on the 2-year treasuries. The good news is when you look at the average maturity of what we've got in these securities, the treasuries and the corporate, we've got roughly a 21-month average maturity. So what that means is we are relatively locked in for the rest of this year and some of next year in those treasuries. So overall, we continue to be receiving the benefits of interest for those securities. Also, the state's funds continue to pay pretty well based on the way that they're invested at 4.58% is the current LAIF view, and just over 5 for LGIP. Are there any questions on this item? That concludes it.
Any members in the room have a question on this item? Any of our members online have a question for Mr. Cox?
No question.
Unfortunately, I understand everything he said.
Thanks. That's fortunate. Thanks.
My only question is, you talked about the investment committee meeting and making some recommendations as we move forward. When do you anticipate that?
So from what I understand is there were some small changes to our policy, more administrative in nature, that needed to be made. Chris made those, and we walked through those as we transitioned. That needed to be we wanted to get it certified by an organization, the National Treasurers Organization. I put that in over 60 days ago, or sorry, over 8 weeks ago, and they were supposed to come back within that 8-week period. So it's like any time they should be coming back. So what we'll do is we just want to have that reviewed with this group and then reapproved, because it's been a while, I think, since we've done that.
Great, thank you. If there are no other questions, then this is an information item only, and we'll just move on to upcoming topics. That's agenda item 10 on our committee meeting. And again, Mr. Cox, will you walk us through upcoming topics?
Surely. So for November, we'll go through the financials as we typically do. We also will have a public records request discussion, talking to Julie. I think we're going to use the ops committee to have that discussion. And
sorry, those are for the charges associated with Public Records Act requests.
correct. Yeah, that came, I believe, as one of the outputs from a prior meeting.
Right,
So
right.
trying to get that on the agenda in November. Then in December, I put December/January. Our fiscal year 24 audit is in process. It sounds like this has come to the board, to this committee and the board anywhere between December and January. I think we are a few weeks kind of behind on the audit. No concerns. It's just we've been short-staffed. We've been down a grants analyst, so the team's been working hard, and we may need a little bit extra time. So that may come to us in January instead of December. And then also we have our annual AIS fee update. That, I think, looking at it historically, has come in kind of the December-January timeframe. So I've been working with Kat and Dennis on our team, and they're looking at potentially a January review of that. So those are the upcoming items in addition to the monthly financials.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Cox on upcoming topics? I'm not seeing any in the room. Any of our committee members online? Okay, then again, this was an information item only. We'll move on to item now 11, committee member comments. Are there any comments from any committee members? Again, none in the room. Any online?
No, thank you.
Thank you. And so then we'll move on to our final matter of business is our general public interest comment period. Any member of the public wishing to address the Operations and Governance Committee on any item listed or not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Individuals or groups who have already commented on items listed on the agenda will not be allowed to comment again on the same topic. We're prohibited by law from taking immediate action or discussing issues raised by the public during this public comment period and must be within the jurisdiction of the agency. So I will now go to the public. Are there any members of the public in the room who would like to address the committee? I'm not seeing an indication of that. Anyone online?
Ms. Gustafson, there is no hands raised to make public comment.
Okay. We'll close the public comment periods and I would look for a motion to adjourn our committee meeting today.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those on. Okay, then the meeting will be adjourned at 9:16 a.m.